You're listening to the Fill Your Cup podcast, and my name is Rachel Melenda, holistic nutritionist turned intuitive eating and body image coach. Each week, you'll be invited into inspiring conversations that will teach you various ways you can go about meeting your needs, putting yourself first, and filling your cup. This is a podcast intended to support those struggling with disordered eating and body image challenges, but trust me when I say there's something in here for everyone. Thanks for tuning in today. Now let's get into some cup-filling goodness. Welcome back to another episode of the Fill Your Cup podcast. This is episode 127 and one of our first solo episodes in a while. It's just you and me, baby. It's been an amazing summer, and I've had the opportunity to speak to some incredible guests and have some really transformative conversations. I know that summer can be a busy time and you might have missed some of those episodes, so I want to strongly encourage you to go back. Some of the fan favorites included episode 122 with my very own mindset coach, Catherine Farquharson, who shared all about how to take advantage of the power of the mind to create your desired reality. I have not stopped raving about my mindset coaching. I feel like I mention it every 2 seconds. And this is your opportunity to get a taste of the work that I've been doing and that I will be continue doing for the next year and plus to come. Another episode was episode 119 featuring Katie Storino, the founder of Mega Babe, who talked all about how to embrace the body and the skin that you're in. Episode 117 was amazing, featuring Selena Gray, who shared with us all how to heal your relationship with money. There are so many other fantastic episodes that I want to encourage you to go back to when you get a chance. And of course, if you're looking for intuitive eating support specifically, we've got our intuitive eating sessions, which are 10-minute bite-sized episodes to receive coaching on an intuitive eating related topic. So definitely head back, listen to those. And just thank you to everyone that has been tuning in and showing their support, as well as for your support over Instagram. If you aren't following us over there yet, be sure to do so over at Fill Your Cup Podcast. And if you haven't yet, please leave a rating and a review where you get your podcasts. I would appreciate it so much. It's what's going to help us get these episodes into the ears of the people that need it the most. And you can know that you played a vital role in that. Okay, now for today's episode. Today, I want to chat with you about our relationship with alcohol. Well, I'm going to share with you my relationship with alcohol and how it has evolved over the years, and more recently when I began questioning my relationship with alcohol. I've been consuming alcohol socially since I was 16, illegally. Back then, I was sipping on things like those 1-liter Vex coolers, Malibu rum, and whatever I could salvage from my parents' liquor cabinet, which was usually like some strange liqueur that probably should have been mixed into a cocktail, but we just drank it straight from the bottle. But in any case, I never had any noticeable issues with alcohol. And even in university, I think I just participated in alcohol consuming related events because I knew it would result in getting to shamelessly eat junk food at the end of the night, which felt like a dream because I was in the midst of my disordered eating and felt like that gave me built-in permission to eat whatever the heck I wanted. Anyway, tangent. But then the pandemic hit in March of 2020, and I noticed my relationship with alcohol starting to change. As we all know, the days were dark, the future was uncertain, and the fear amongst humanity as a collective was palpable. And along with everyone else across the world, I was living and working from home, unable to engage in social activities outside of it. And so alcohol became the new way to break up the workday in the evening. And I had also just begun dating someone at the time that was very much into food and drink like me. So at the time, I thought nothing of it. Like 5 p.m. would hit and I would like leap from my office chair with excitement and be like, what are we making? And it just felt fun and harmless. And I know maybe you're listening to this right now thinking like this story is going to head down a dark, spirally path, but that's actually kind of the furthest extent to which it went. So for me, it was consistent drinking, not necessarily in excess, maybe more so on weekends, just like this over-reliance on alcohol. Like it started to get to the point where I didn't just want it, but I was like, I need it. And there was maybe a handful of times where I would pour a drink around 2 or 3 p.m. when I was about to do a lot of writing, which I genuinely do like doing. Like I like having, say, like a glass of wine while writing a blog post. But at the same time, I was like, what am I doing? I still felt in control, but I could see how I was on the verge of a slippery slope. And some might look at some of these behaviors and say like, oh, that's normal. But just because something is normal, it doesn't necessarily mean it's serving us. And for me, it was starting to become very apparent that I was using alcohol to run from something and escape uncomfortable feelings, similar to what I used to do when I emotionally ate. And I'm really grateful for my emotional eating knowledge because it helped me to see that. And so often, especially with emotional eating, we're quick to beat ourselves up and criticize ourselves for our behavior and perhaps self-loathe and make ourselves feel poorly about our decisions. But nothing good comes from that. So when I'm coaching on emotional eating with my intuitive way for eating clients, I like to remind them to choose compassion and curiosity over criticism. Okay, I'm going to say that again in case you missed that. Compassion and curiosity over criticism. What that means is to choose compassion. Like talk to yourself like you would a child. Be gentle with yourself and kind to yourself rather than criticizing yourself and beating yourself up. And then get curious. What might have brought upon the urge to emotionally eat, or in my case here, to drink? What happened right when I felt the urge to have a drink? Who was I talking to? What was I doing? Was I on social media? How was I feeling? Compassion and curiosity over criticism allows us to get to the root of why we're turning to our coping mechanisms and crutches to begin with, so we can start meeting our needs and, wait for it, fill our cups to in turn stave off the need to turn to our coping mechanisms. That said, there is truth to the fact that some coping mechanisms like emotional eating can be a harm reduction tool. So know that I'm not saying that emotional eating is the worst thing that you can do. It can actually be a really beautiful soothing tool that's readily available to us. But of course, if we're constantly turning to coping mechanisms and our crutches, that's when I would invite someone or myself to look at how they may be using food or alcohol to avoid feeling what they're afraid to feel. Anyway, a bit of a tangent there. But when I used compassion and curiosity over criticism to get more clear on why I was feeling reliant on alcohol, I was able to see that a few things were going on that I was feeling and perhaps trying to run away from. One being the stress and the uncertainty around the pandemic. We need to remember all of us have never lived through a pandemic. And while we may have gotten used to some of the things now, all you have to do is go back to March of 2020 to remember just how traumatic that experience was. I still even feel like, years from now, we're going to look back on this and be like, that was wild, right? It doesn't feel that way maybe right now, or maybe it does for you. But, a lot of this has become normalized. But I think we're going to look back and, therapists are going to be in high demand. But, grocery shopping feeling apocalyptic with nearly empty shelves and lineups at the door, like that was scary. The uncertainty of not knowing what was next, people's careers and businesses suddenly put to a screaming halt. Speaking of careers, I had just gone full-time working for myself a month before the pandemic hit. So there's definitely fears around that. It was like, I left my job and went to work for myself, and I was like, the world is mine. Like, I'm going to do this thing. I've got everything laid out before me. It's going to be awesome. And then a month later, I was like, damn, where's the guidebook for this? So there was that. I was also in a relationship at the time that was quite intense, that brought up a lot around my childhood wounds and triggers. And then I was hit with depression in November of 2020 and followed that by a ton of personal development and healing work, which was incredible and helpful and healing, but exhausting in so many ways. And so all that to say, I was able to see fully why I turned to alcohol as a crutch over the past year. But this past spring and early summer, I started to really question whether it was something that was still serving me at all. I had heard of the Sober Curious movement and even known people who chose a path of 100% sobriety and felt so much better for it, but the thought of that really scared me. That said, the thought of potentially falling down the slippery slope and starting to rely more heavily on alcohol as a crutch felt scarier. So instead of cutting it out entirely, I decided to fill my fridge with more non-alcoholic options. The thing is, most of the time I would be grabbing a fun drink from my fridge just because it was there. But if there was like a beautiful kombucha or a fun soda or a non-alcoholic drink alternative to sip on, I would be excited to drink it. Like sometimes it was just the act of like, breaking up the day and like having a fun drink. It didn't always necessarily have to be the alcohol itself. So I did that. And thankfully there are so many incredible non-alcoholic beverages on the market today. And I've actually put together a list of some of my favorites in a blog post, which you can find at the link in the show notes. And I should also add, I'm especially proud of these because I pride myself on being a cocktail, wine, and craft beer lover, and I'm beyond tricking myself into thinking something is something else like I used to in my dieting days. So let's face it, banana and ice cream is not ice cream. And I wasn't about to trick myself into thinking a non-alcoholic beer or wine was actually beer or wine. But I've had the opportunity to try a bunch of them, and I can confidently say there are some goodies out there, including my new Amalfi Spritz kombucha. That's right, if you haven't heard yet, I collaborated with More Kombucha, who is a local Toronto kombucha company, to create a booze-free Aperol Spritz-inspired kombucha that goes by the name of Amalfi Spritz kombucha. And actually, I want to tell you the story of how this all came to be because it's just proof proof to trust the process and ride out the tough days, because often they're leading you to something really, really awesome. So back in June, a few months ago, I was having a sad girl day. I forget why now, but whenever I'm having a sad girl day, I make a point to do something nourishing and cup filling for myself. So I went to Kensington Market in Toronto, which, if you aren't familiar, it's just kind of like a really cool hippie-like space in the city that has like really great food and drinks and a little park in the middle and music. It kind of feels like you're on vacation somewhere else. So I was looking for like good food and culture and things to look around at. And so I grabbed a Jamaican patty and ate it in the park while people watching. And then I went to one of the health food stores there. That's really amazing. I love looking around grocery stores. And I came across this non-alcoholic gin and tonic from More Kombucha. And at the time, I was just starting to question my relationship with alcohol and wanting to consciously drink less. And so I thought, like, what a perfect drink. Like, I can still have the cocktail flavor that I love, but without the alcohol. So I came home, cracked it, did a little Instagram story, put some music on top and was like, fill your cup, folks. And I tagged More Kombucha, and then they DM'd me back saying, hey, Rachel, we really love your page, your brand, and all that you're up to. Would you want to collab on a custom flavor with us? And I was both shocked and excited and confused. Like, I thought they might have been asking me because of my past with kombucha. And for those that are new here, for your reference, I used to teach kombucha brewing workshops out of Left Field Brewery here in Toronto, which I later turned into an online course called DIY Kombucha Online, which is still sold on joyoushealth.com today. I was like the kombucha girl for a bit, but they had no idea about my kombucha brewing past. They just thought it would be a good cup filling fit. And so we went with it, and just a couple months later, we birthed the Amalfi Spritz Kombucha, which, in my totally biased opinion, and in the words of others, is freaking amazing. It has like the bitterness a cocktail offers, like an Aperol Spritz has, with just a hint of sweetness. So it's not overwhelmingly sweet. Like, it has like a bit of hit of sweet and bitterness. It's just so good. I'm super proud of it and stoked about it. And the people that already got their hands on it are loving it. So if you are interested in trying it too, you can order it online directly from morekombucha.com. And if you use the coupon code FILLYOURCUP, that's FILLYOURCUP, you can save 10% off of your whole order. So that's morekombucha.com, morekombucha.com, and coupon code FILLYOURCUP. If you miss any of that, hop to the show notes. Everything is there. But anyway, little shameless plug there. So you can find more details there, as well as the other non-alcoholic beverages that I've been loving in the blog post linked in the show notes. Now, has simply stocking my fridge with non-alcoholic drinks helped me to reduce my alcohol consumption? Yes. However, I do still consume alcohol. I personally don't feel like I'm at a place where I feel called to omit it altogether, though I will say I'm very curious about what that could do for me. More so because I've heard of other people share their experiences of having done so, and I can see how beneficial it would be. But again, I struggle with an all or nothing mentality, and omitting something entirely can often create the opposite effect for me, where I want it more. You know, just the nature of having a disordered eating background / the nature of restriction, if you don't have a strong why behind it. So I think if I were to do that, eventually I would just make sure I have a strong why behind it first. But I personally don't feel like I'm there yet. So I'm happy with this sort of balance that I'm at. Not a 50-50 balance, by the way. I use balance kind of loosely. But I am curious to do some ongoing reading on the topic. There's a few books that people have put on my radar, including Quit Like a Woman by Holly Whitaker. And there was another book that's slipping my mind right now, but it has something to do with looking at the patriarchal and oppressive roots of women and their relationship with alcohol. Apparently it's a book that like stirs up a lot of anger, but like beneficial anger, to see how woman's relationship with alcohol has been conditioned, like down to the sexiness of having a glass of wine to unwind after a busy day, or as a busy mom. I'm sorry if I'm totally butchering that, but if anyone knows what I'm talking about, please DM me the book name and I'll share it on Instagram with everyone else who's wondering what this book is. One thing that really drove me to question my relationship with alcohol is seeing how it impacted my mental health. I shared with you all that I struggled with severe depression last November 2020, and it still rears its head every now and then, not as low or badly as it was at that time. But the thought of sinking that low again is truly terrifying to me. And I noticed in particular with red wine that whenever I would drink it, it would make me super moody, super low and emotional. So I actually cut that out for several months. And then I tried it again back in June just to see how it would still impact me, like to see if it would impact me in the same way. And in the days that followed, I was so low again. So I've since cut it out, and just red wine solely does this. Like other forms of alcohol can, alcohol is a depressant, right? So it can have that effect, but I don't find that with other forms of alcohol. It's specifically red wine. Like I can have half a glass and it doesn't jive with me. So, I mean, I even call it depression juice. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about have a strong why behind it. Like there's no part of me that feels restricted or I'm kind of sad about not having red wine because it's delicious. But I would not care about never having it again because it's not worth it to me to feel that way. Like it feels so awful that there's just no part of me that wants it. So that's when I say like you need to have a strong why. That's what's going to keep you committed to this. I don't want to call it a goal of yours, but in truth with your desires. I think what I've learned in this process is just to get curious and question the things that we've been conditioned to, and to be really honest with yourself and with others. I'll be honest, sharing this on a public forum at first felt really scary. There's so many stories and beliefs around that people have around alcoholism, and I was afraid of the stories that might be created about me as a result of me sharing this. And I also want to say, if you struggle with alcoholism or know someone that's been affected by it, I hope you know that this is just a projection of my crap and unhealed parts of myself that I'm still working on that aren't actually true. So know that you are no less if you struggle with alcoholism or know someone that has. Those stories are just that. They are stories. It could be anything. Your alcoholism could be my eating disorder. It's you get what I'm saying there, I hope. But why I still felt strongly about sharing this is because I think we need more safe outlets and platforms to talk about this. The alternative is not talking about it, hiding and feeling shame about it, which can perpetuate it even more. I was really grateful to have some friends to talk to during this time who I knew wouldn't judge me and would instead validate my experience and help me understand why I might have been turning to alcohol the way I was. And I hope this platform will forever be a place for you to do that too, which is why we have these quote unquote taboo conversations. So what does my relationship with alcohol look like for the foreseeable future? I'm not sure. What I do know is that it will be intuitive and true to me and what I'm feeling. We actually had Ariana McCartney, who's behind the account intuitive.sobriety on Instagram. She was on the podcast this summer in episode 120, where she talked about how she navigates sobriety similar to how intuitive eating works. It's a fascinating approach, an episode that I took away so much from. So if you're interested in learning more about that, definitely skip back to that. It's episode 120. But right now I'm feeling quite good. And there's definitely a noticeable difference in my reliance on alcohol with where I'm at and feeling in my life. I'm definitely more reliant when I'm in a state of go, and not taking enough time for me and not, again, filling my cup. I know I talk about this all the time, but folks, it matters. You've got to take care of you first. You can't pour from an empty cup. If your cup is empty, you will naturally go seeking outside of yourself for satisfaction or dopamine elsewhere. So whether you're questioning your relationship with alcohol or not, I hope that's what you can take away. Notice when you're looking outside of yourself for happiness. Ask yourself, how can I fill my own cup right now? How can I nourish myself? How can I care for me? How can I come back home to my most authentic self? What do I need? Start there. Come back home to you, get honest with yourself, love yourself, and fill your dang cup. I'll talk to you next week, folks. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of the Failure Cup podcast. We look forward to hanging with you again next week. A new episode drops every Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more cup filling strategies and conversations that will inspire you to eat, move, and live more intuitively, be sure to hit the subscribe button and follow us on Instagram at Failure Cup Podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you know someone that could benefit from hearing what was discussed in today's episode, take a screenshot of the episode or copy the link to the episode and send it their way. Thanks again, and we'll see you next week.